Okay, I'm going to start explaining 5.4 Algebra 2 Honors. Multiply dividing rational expressions. The assignment's going to be 3 to 41 odds, but before we do that, let's go through some examples. The key is knowing how to factor. Are there factors of negative 15 that add to negative 2? Well, that'd be a negative 5 and a positive 3. The denominator factors is the difference of squares, x plus 3x minus 3. The x plus 3's can divide out, leaving me my answer of x minus 5 divided by x minus 3. I've simplified by factoring and canceling, or factoring and dividing out. Now in example 3, I think it might be best just doing top times top, bottom times bottom. 7 times 8, 56. X to the 3 times x to the 4, you add exponents. Y to the 1 times y to the 3, you add exponents. 2 times 4 is 8 on the bottom. X is there by itself. Y squared times y to the first is y to the third. 56 divided by 7. Well, 7 times 8 I think is 56, right? So does that go to 7 on top? How many more x's are on top? Well, I see 6 more on top. How many more y's are on top? 1. So hopefully it's 7x to the 6th y divided by 1, but you don't have to put that. Okay, as far as factoring, I factored this top, x squared minus 2x minus 15. Remember that all trinomials are ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. I always look for a times c. In this case, 1 times negative 15. And I list all the factors I can think of that give me negative 15. There won't be that many of them. And then I look for b. b is negative 2 in this case, right? I look for ones that add to give me negative 2 and multiply to give me this. So which of these add to give me negative 2? Negative 5 and 3. So to get x squared, I had x times x. Because a is a 1 here, I can put these numbers right in. Negative 5 and positive 3. So that's how I factored the numerator. Okay, after example 3, let's look at example 4. I'm going to factor. So on here, I can take out a 3x, leaving me 1 minus x. In the denominator, x squared factors into x times x. Factors of negative 5 that add to 4. Well, I think that would be a 5 and a negative 1. Times, I'll factor this numerator. I think that's x plus 5, x minus 4. They multiply to negative 20 and add to 1. And 3x. I kind of need you to see some things. First off, the 3x is going to divide with the 3x. Because it's multiplication, you can make it one big fraction. The x plus 5 cancels with the x plus 5. The only thing I'm not sure everybody's going to see here is that 1 minus x and x minus 1 are almost the same. You have to do what's called the negative 1 trick. If I take a negative 1 out of 1 minus x, it becomes x minus 1. And that allows it to cancel with the x minus 1 on the bottom. So your answer would be a negative 1 times x minus 4, or 4 minus x. Now if you distribute, you may notice that this negative, here I took out a negative 1. If I distribute, that's a negative x, which is what this says. A positive 1, which is what this says. All I'm doing is factoring a negative 1 out, and that reverses the subtraction. It's a very handy tool for canceling. Example 4, let's look at example 6. This is a division. So division, you stay, change, flip. So I'm going to leave that. I will factor as I go. Factor the denominator. I'm going to stay, first one stayed, this changes, and then you flip this. So the x squared minus 6x is on bottom. I'm factoring it. This factors to x minus 5 times x minus 6. So I did stay, change, flip. Now some things might cancel. X minus 5 with x minus 5, x with x, and the x minus 6 with the x minus 6. So I think this just leaves me with a 7 over 2. Okay, we're doing numbers 3 to 41 odds. 3 and 5 are matching. So I want factors of 14 that add to negative 9. I think negative 7 and negative 2 multiply to 14 but add to negative 9. Also, x minus 7 and x plus 2 multiply to negative 14 but add to negative 5. Those would cancel, leaving me an answer of x minus 2 divided by x plus 2. Now, again, I think you're noticing that the key is being able to factor these. Factors of negative 14 that add to 5. Well, that would be x plus 7 and x minus 2. They multiply to negative 14 and add to 5. What multiplies to 4 but adds to negative 4? Well, that would be negative 2 and negative 2. I think these could divide out, giving me an answer of x plus 7 divided by x minus 2. Now, if we're matching, I think the first one is x minus 2 over x plus 2. That's letter B. And 5 is x plus 7 over x minus 2, so that's letter C. Okay, after 5, I think we're going to go to 7 and 9. Again, we're going to factor and simplify. This factors to x minus 5, x plus 4. Again, they multiply to negative 20 and add to negative 1. How about this? Okay, number 7 was to simplify if possible. I factor the top, I factor the bottom. I don't see anything that divides out, so I don't think we can simplify that one. Number 9, what multiplies to 24 but adds to negative 11? I think that would be negative 8 and negative 3 that multiplies to 24 and adds to negative 11. What multiplies to negative 40 and adds to negative 3? Well, negative 8 and positive 5, I think, right? Those would multiply to negative 40 and add to negative 3. The x minus h could divide out, leaving me a simplified answer of x minus 3 divided by x plus 5. Okay, let's look at one like 15. This does not have a leading coefficient of 1. Neither does the one on the bottom, so you have to do them a little bit different. The top is either going to factor into 4x times 2x to get 8x squared, or it might factor into 8x times 1x. Let's see what a times c is. I'm only looking at the numerator. A times c is negative 24, and b is 10. I need things that multiply to negative 24, but add to give me 10. 4 goes into the 12, so I put the 12 up here, and then negative 2 goes here. 4 times what is 12? 4 times what is 12? Well, that would be a 3. 2 times what is negative 2? 2 times what is negative 2? Negative 1. So I think the top would factor into 4x minus 1 and 2x plus 3. I always check if last times last equals last or not. And it does. So in this one, I have 6x squared. So that's probably going to be 3x times 2x. For this one, what's a times c? On the bottom, 6 times 6 is 36. What's B? 13. So I want factors of 36 that add to 13, namely 9 and 4. 3 goes into the 9 and 2 goes into the 4. So 3 times what is 9? 3 times what is 9? Well, that'd be a 3. 2 times what is 4? 2 times 2 is 4. So the bottom factors into 3x plus 2 times 2x plus 3. I notice that the 2x plus 3 numerator and denominator can cancel, leaving me a simplified answer of 4x minus 1 over 3x plus 2. Okay, 15. Let's look at 17. This is a little harder one to factor if you don't know how. It's not too bad once you learn the tricks, but I have the top here. It's minus 3x and plus 15. I see 4 terms, no common factor. I separate it. What can I factor out of the first 2 here? X squared, leaving me x minus 5. What can I take out of the second 2? A negative 3. Also leaving me x minus 5 because it's still negative 3x plus 15. Now do they both have x minus 5s? Factor that out. And what remains? X squared minus 3. So the top is going to factor into x minus 5 times x squared minus 3. The bottom's going to factor into x minus 5 times x minus 3. These would cancel, leaving me my answer. Now, if you wish to factor the top, it'd be x plus radical 3 and x minus radical 3. But I think that's all I can do with number 17. Okay, we've done a few of them on simplifying. Now we're going to move to some on actually multiplying and then some dividing. When you multiply fractions, top times top, bottom times bottom. So 48 times 1 is 48. X times x to the fifth times x to the second is x to the 7. Y to the 3 times y to the 1 is y to the 4. On bottom, 1 times 6 is 6. There's an x to the third. And a y to the 4 times y to the 2 becomes y to the 6. 6 goes into 48 how many times? 6 times 8 is 48. And how many more x's are on top? 4. How many more y's are on bottom? 2. So there's your answer for 25. In 29, you're going to want to factor these. You can take a 4 out of 4x minus 16. You can take a 2 out of 2x squared and 32. 2 times 16 is 32. This will factor to x plus 5x minus 5. So far on the top, I have this. I'm going to factor the top, the x squared minus 16. On bottom, you have a 4. You have an x minus 4. You have an x plus 5 and an x minus 5. Will anything divide out? Well, x plus 5 with x plus 5, x minus 4 with x minus 4. And the 2 goes into the 4, leaving me a 2 on the bottom, right? And what's on top? You have an x plus 4. And what's on bottom? An x minus 5. So hopefully this is your answer for 29. Okay, moving on a little bit. 31, I'm going to factor. This will factor into x real fast. Let me just factor this. X minus 5, x plus 2. This will factor into x minus 5 x plus 3, I think. They multiply negative 15, add to negative 2. On top, they multiply negative 10, add to negative 3. And this factors into x plus 3, x plus 7, I think, because they multiply to 21 and add to 10. So those will divide out, these will divide out, leaving me x plus 2 times x plus 7 for number 31. It's over 1, but you don't need to put it over 1. Okay, we did some multiplication. Now we're going to finish up doing a few of your division problems for homework. Stay, change, flip. So I'm going to turn this into a multiplication. Stay, this stays the same. X, z to the third. Change and flip. So now I'm doing the reciprocal on this other term here. Top times top is 8. X to the 2 plus 4 is 6. Y to the second, z to the 1 plus 1 is 2. On bottom I have a 10. X times x is x to the 2. There's a y, and there's a z to the third, it looks like. So 8 over 10 simplifies to 4 over 5. How many more x's are on top? 4 of them. How many more y's are on top? 1 of them. How many more z's are on bottom? 1 of them. So this should be your answer for number 35. You just want to stay, change, flip. I multiplied top times top, bottom times bottom, and simplified. 41, I'm going to do the same thing. Stay, change, flip, but I'm going to factor it. X minus 2x plus 1. And on bottom, x plus 5 times x minus 1. Change, flip. I'm going to flip and factor at the same time if you don't mind. 5 divides into 5x and 25. Now, does anything cancel now that I have as multiplication? Multiplication makes one big fraction, so I get this divided by this.